going to be talking about a few books that I've picked out so far that I definitely want to read in November. I very rarely push TBR books into the next month. I had an original TBR for October. There are books on that original TBR that I did not read, but if I carry them over to November and then don't read them in November, then I carry them on to December, and this is blah, blah, blah. That doesn't work for me, because then I develop this aversion to actually reading the book because I have this like association with me prioritizing other books over it, so do I really want to read it or not? So I am going to finish Broken Things by Lauren Oliver because I'm already reading it. But another book that I want to read that I did not read in October is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. I really wanted to read this in October. I can't believe I didn't get to it. I'm so sorry. I don't remember what it's about. I just know that it's a thriller, and I like adult thrillers. Cool. So, in this tightly wound, enthralling story reminiscent of Agatha Christie's works, Lo Blacklock, a journalist who writes for a traveling magazine, has just been given the assignment of a lifetime. A week in the luxury cruise, only a handful of cabins, the sky is clear, the water's calm, and the vineyard select guests jovial as the exclusive cruise ship, the Aurora. Oh my gosh! They go on a cruise ship named Aurora. That's so cute. Wait. Cabin 10? Wait. I thought this was about a cabin, like in the woods. She's on a cruise ship. Cabin 10. There's literally a wave from the ocean on the cover of this book. There is no woods at all. A woman being thrown overboard. The problem? All passengers and crew members remain accounted for, and so the ship sails on as if nothing has happened. She thinks that a woman was thrown overboard, or was there a woman thrown overboard? Is it all in her head? I don't know. That is the ocean. Moving on. Also in the month of November, I really wanted to get to Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I wanted this to be my first read of November, since this was my first read of October, but I'm having a feeling that it's gonna be like my third or fourth read. I think this is gonna be my adult book that I post a review for this month, because I want to review new books so that people know what they're about. This woman, Marcella, just gained powers, and now she's gonna pit freaking Victor and Eli against each other again. Eli and Victor are again enemies. Really? Can't you just make up and be friends again? These books are in no particular order, obviously, because like I said before, I want to read Dark Matter, which is a Lala book, and I need to read this before the 9th because that's when Lalathon's happening. Am I really gonna push this book back so far? Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I've had this book on my shelf for a while. I think this is a time travel book. Oh. Whoa. Jason Dessen is our main character, and he hears the words, "Are you happy with your life?" before he awakens to find himself strapped to a gurney, surrounded by strangers in hazmat suits. Welcome back, my friend. But his wife is not his wife, his son was never born, Jason is not an ordinary college physics professor, but a celebrated genius who has achieved something remarkable, impossible. This is giving me Paycheck vibes. Have you ever seen the Ben Affleck movie, Paycheck? I loved that movie. I absolutely still love that movie to this day. I'm excited for this book so much. And the last book that I know for sure that I want to read this month. And now, knowing me, TBRs are not set in stone, so only time will tell if I actually read all of these books. But no, I have not read Gentleman's Guide, and I need to read it because it's so freaking cute. I didn't read it. How do I know that? I know that because it is, okay? Was this in my October TBR? I feel like it was. I think it was. Was it? I think it was. I don't remember. And again, this is another hyped up book that people are talking about on BookTube, so I won't get into it too much, but this is another book that I feel like is worth the hype, even though I haven't read it yet. I'm just making assumptions. Okay, so I'm gonna read it, and you will hear all of my thoughts in my wrap-up. I actually did not hit record when I opened my Amazon box. Here's what you missed. I ordered Sadie by Courtney Summers. I can't believe I have this in my hand finally. I've read all of her books, and oh my gosh, I'm gonna talk about that in a second. And Grim Lovelies by Megan Shepherd, a book that I know a little bit about. The premise sounds amazing, and I want to read it right away. Here's the deal with Courtney Summers. I have read all of her books except her newest one. I can't believe that people didn't know about her until now, until Sadie. Yes, this is another book that everyone's talking about. I don't want to be like super mainstream, but Courtney Summers is a great author. She wrote a book called This Is Not a Test, and it's one of my favorite books. She primarily writes contemporary books. This Is Not a Test is a zombie book, but her contemporary like prose comes through with the main character's perspective because the main character is so traumatized by everything that's happening that she is pretty depressed. Okay, let's talk about Sadie. This book is obviously about Sadie. She runs away or goes missing right after the brutal murder of her little sister Maddie. A huge aspect of this book that people are raving about and enjoying is the podcast. Now, I just read a book that featured a podcast also. It was I Know You Know by Gillian McMillan, which I did not like. I have a complete review of this book, and it's a little bit ranty, and it's just me kind of complaining about the book, so if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to. But I go into all of the reasons why I didn't like the book. I don't just hate on it, I don't just call it names. I give specific examples from the book that I didn't like and had problems with. But it's not the podcast from I Know You Know that I disliked the book because of, you know? The podcast was fine, it was just like the plot fell apart. I'm finally gonna read Courtney Summers' newest book, oh my gosh, and Courtney Summers is gonna be at YallFest, so maybe I can take this book and get her to sign it. I'm kind of afraid that this is one of those books that I'm going to start and then want to do nothing else but read this book and finish it in one sitting. But I just feel like the author took like years to write a book and I'm gonna read it in one day and then it's over already? Okay. Enough of that, let's talk about Grim Lovelies. I'm reading this because I'm a big fan of like creature books and werewolf stories, and this is like that. I also want to read it, and I just found this out, at the Nanowrimo event that I went to at my local bookstore, they're reading this for their YA book club. Like legit, this book is everywhere in my life. I had to buy it. I really hate the feel of this. Ew, I hate that. What is that? Whatever it's called that this cover is like made out of, I don't like that. That is not a texture that I like. Anouk envies the human world where people known as pretties, oh really, Scott Westerfeld? She finds her mistress murdered in a pool of blood and Anouk is accused of the crime. What? This is about people who were animals and now those animals were cursed to be human. So Anouk, our main character, has only been human for like a year or something? This sounds like such a fairy tale. Her mistress, Mara Vitora. It sounds like she is like a witch that is cursing animals to be humans, maybe to work for her. But then, evil mistress Materda is dead. And the beasties, newly human, are like, what do we do now? They have only 3 days to find the real killer before the spell keeping them human fades away. If they fail, they will lose the only lives they've ever known, but if they succeed, they could be more powerful than anyone ever bargained for. Like I said before, I don't read a lot of fantasy, but this is fantasy and fairy tales, and it sounds really good. I know of 2 book clubs who are reading this month. One of them in real life, not on the internet. I'm so excited. This is also one of those books that I knew about like months before it was actually published. And speaking of that, let me segue into another thing that I would like to mention. Starting with November and going for as long as I want to or can, I'm going to be posting videos about new releases. So I do a lot of research about YA new releases and what's coming out. Towards the beginning of every month, I'm gonna put out a video of all the books that I found out about that are coming out that month. So stay tuned for my November new releases and my December new releases, and then we'll move on to the new year. There are so many books coming out next year, so many. There aren't actually a lot of books coming out in December. I found a bunch for November, but like towards the end of the year, I don't know why. It's the holiday season, people, but they just don't put out books like they do during the rest of the year. I also want to make my BookTube channel informative so that I'm not just spewing my feelings and opinions about books, I'm also helping you learn about what's coming out. So there are tons of books now on my November TBR. That's a lot. Okay guys, that has been my October wrap-up, my November TBR, a small unboxing that you didn't see because the camera didn't actually record it because I didn't hit record, but you will find out in further videos to come what I actually end up reading this month. Because sometimes I'm impulsive and just want to read what I feel like that day.